2:37 p.m., September 26, 2025. Above the frozen Bering Sea, the U.S. Air Force moved to answer a tense, multi-layered Russian air operation that pushed the situation to the edge of a major international standoff. How do you shake the confidence of an experienced Su-35 pilot without firing a single round? The answer is America's invisible, multi-billion-dollar defense network. And this is exactly how the U.S. Air Force can bring it online in just 3 minutes. The Alaska Air Defense Identification Zone is America's steel front line, a 200 nautical mile buffer where any approaching aircraft is expected to identify itself. The world is already under intense geopolitical pressure, and still, Russia continues testing the boundaries. From bases in Russia's Chukotka region, aircraft head southeast across the Bering Strait, pushing deep into Alaska's ADIs along the state's western edge, closing to roughly 100 nautical miles from U.S. territory. At their nearest point, Russia presents a deliberately provocative formation. 2 massive Tu-95 Bear bombers, Cold War-era giants with a 164-foot wingspan, top speeds around 575 miles per hour, and 4 15,000-horsepower engines each, escorted by 2 highly maneuverable Su-35 Flanker E fighters, each able to track up to 30 targets at 124 miles, and powered by 31,000 pounds of vectored thrust. This is not a routine pass. It is a calculated show of pressure in the Arctic, where melting ice is opening new shipping lanes and new access to valuable resources. Russia is testing America. If there is no answer here, the pressure will not stay in the Arctic. It could spread from the far north to NATO's European flank. So how could the United States afford to stay silent? Warning alerts echo through the command center at the airbase as ground radar at Clear Air Force Station lights up with incoming contacts, detecting aircraft more than 200 miles out. Eagle 1 to center. Targets confirmed. 4 aircraft entering the ADIZ. I'll lead the intercept formation. Within 3 minutes at 1440, 4 F-16 Fighting Falcons are airborne. The pilot drives the throttle forward. 29,000 pounds of thrust surge behind him, pressing him into the seat. The airframe vibrates. The speed climbs past Mach 1, then Mach 2. Outside the canopy, the world blurs into streaks. Backing up the F-16S is an E-3 Sentry AWACS aircraft, equipped with radar capable of tracking low-flying targets at 250 miles and high-altitude aircraft even farther away. To stretch the mission, 4K C-135 Stratotanker refueling aircraft also launch, each carrying roughly 200,000 pounds of fuel and able to transfer it at around 120 gallons per minute. This is not just a reaction. It is a carefully staged display of integrated air power. So how does America stay calm when the pressure keeps rising? Satellites orbiting 482 miles above Earth feed live data into NORAD's Cheyenne Mountain complex, while ground radar and airborne assets lock together into an unbroken chain. Detect, track, respond, control. As the Russian group presses deeper into Alaska's air defense zone, their posture leaves little doubt. The Su-35s weave aggressively, openly challenging U.S. resolve, almost as if daring the Eagle to blink. They are about to learn that this is a serious mistake. A cold voice cuts across the international emergency frequency. Russian aircraft, this is the United States Air Force. You are operating outside established protocol. Turn away immediately or risk further escalation. But the Russian aircraft appear to ignore the call. They continue deeper into the ADIZ, apparently unaware that this moment could define a pilot's entire career. Inside the lead Su-35 cockpit, the Russian pilot grips the controls, eases the throttle, and banks right, deliberately crossing the projected path of the American formation. A direct challenge. His wingman follows. A second Su-35 surges forward, then suddenly rolls to block the view of the approaching F-16 from below, forcing the American pilot to adjust immediately. The F-16IS close in. Their radar systems lock onto the Russian aircraft with remarkable precision, able to track 10 targets and engage 6 simultaneously from 30,000 feet. Above them, the E-3 Sentry manages the intercept, sending real-time intelligence through the Link 16 network, a secure data system with near-instant response time, turning each aircraft into part of a vast connected web. No cannon fire, no missiles, just speed, positioning, and raw physics. And Russia starts to wobble. But then a new phase begins. Electronic pressure. The tension tightens. The Su-35s move dangerously close, cutting into the F-16's airflow and creating violent turbulence that could unsettle a less experienced pilot. One mistake here, and both aircraft could be lost. These maneuvers are designed to disrupt the American formation, producing wake effects powerful enough to feel like a Category 5 storm, rattling the aircraft with violent gusts. But American pilots, hardened by 180 hours of annual flight training and repeated exercises against peer-level threats, do not flinch. The lead F-16 pilot keeps his right hand tight on the stick, while his left hand works the throttle, holding position. Then suddenly, one Su-35 drops lower and slices across the F-16's nose from only a few dozen meters away. Its engine wash slams the American jet's right wing. The frame groans. The pilot snaps the controls left to steady the aircraft. His wingman reacts instantly. Another F-16 surges upward and banks into place, cutting off the Russian jet's retreat and trapping it between two American fighters. The American jet wash now rocks the Su-35, forcing its pilot to pull up sharply to avoid a collision. 14:52. The American formation now controls the southern side of the Russian flight path. The Russian pilot clearly did not expect such a strong response. Then comes a textbook tactical move. The lead F-16 pilot pushes the throttle forward and ignites the afterburner, unleashing a 3,000-degree Fahrenheit exhaust plume at extreme speed directly into the path of the trailing Su-35. Inside the Russian cockpit, the effect is immediate. The Su-35 shakes violently. The airframe bucks. The pilot is forced to break away. No round fired directly at the target. No missile launched. Just a pure physics message from America. Back off. Now. The Tu-95s and their escorts scramble to reorganize. But instead of stepping away, Russia raises the pressure again. Another Su-35 climbs high over the American formation, then dives sharply across the path of the distant E-3 Sentry, forcing the command aircraft into an emergency altitude adjustment. Its warning systems flash. The Russian pilot is projecting confidence, but he has no idea he is about to face the full reach of the U.S. Air Force. The maneuvering duel pauses, but the real contest is only beginning, this time on the electromagnetic spectrum. The Su-35s activate jamming pods, creating a digital fog meant to blind the F-16's sensors. American cockpit screens flicker with interference. But there is one problem with trying to blind a system built like this. You cannot blind the eye above the battlefield. The U.S. pilots switch to backup data from the E-3, maintain the link, and adjust course to reduce the impact of the jamming, keeping the command chain fully intact. NORAD's layered defense is already ready. Then, from the digital shadows, another player enters, the EA-18G Growler. It does not rely on missiles. It fights with confusion. False F-16 signatures flood Russian radar screens. The sky fills with decoys, and the real American fighters seem to disappear into empty space. The Su-35's radar, one of Russia's proudest systems, suddenly becomes nearly useless. This electronic chess match puts U.S. advantages on full display, turning Russia's advance move into something outdated and ineffective. And the Russian formation still does not realize the cost of what is happening. A Su-35 pilot shifts position, trying to compensate for the jammed radar. He closes in, looking for visual range and trying to regain a lock, slicing once again across the path of the lead F-16 and forcing another evasive maneuver. America's restraint is being tested to the limit. Then the moment changes everything. One Su-35 pilot, perhaps too confident, places his radar lock onto the lead F-16. A sharp warning tone fills the American cockpit. Radar lock, intent confirmed. This is no longer a tense flyby. The American formation reacts instantly. The lead F-16 rolls away from the projected line while support from the wingman and the E-3 layers in around him to break the lock, contain the situation, and maintain the advantage without losing control of the encounter. Inside NORAD's Cheyenne Mountain Complex, senior commanders weigh the decision in seconds. A direct engagement could trigger a much larger crisis, but doing nothing could invite even more pressure next time. The order comes down. Eagle 1, hold discipline, repeat. Warning burst only. With perfect timing, the F-16 pilot snaps into a hard brake, pulling forces that would overwhelm an untrained body and activates the M61A1 Vulcan cannon. a 6-barrel system capable of sending 20mm rounds at 6,000 per minute. A short burst cuts across the sky, close enough to send an unmistakable message, controlled enough to avoid direct contact. The tracer line passes just above the Su-35's canopy, near enough to be felt, far enough to avoid impact. And in that instant, the message is undeniable. America has answered. The Russian formation is thrown into visible turbulence, with the Tu-95 rocking hard as it tries to avoid the violent vortices created by the escort aircraft. In that instant, Russia is forced to think less about pressure and more about basic flight safety. A clear shift from offense to self-preservation. The Russian pilot's composure begins to crack. The formation starts to waver. No one is hit. No direct damage is done. But the message is impossible to miss. America is not here to play along. The Russian pilot hesitates, and that hesitation turns into passivity. As the formation loses momentum, a cold, unwavering voice cuts across the international emergency frequency once again. We repeat, Russian aircraft, this is the United States Air Force. You are operating outside established rules. Turn away immediately or face further escalation. Then, through the cloud layer, another presence appears, an F-22 Raptor. With a radar cross-section so small it is often compared to something smaller than a marble, the aircraft remains all but invisible to Russian sensors until the moment it matters most. Now the Russian formation understands the reality of the situation. It is surrounded by a layered U.S. network of assets, tracked from every angle, pressured from every domain, and left with no good options. The formation breaks apart. The aircraft turn away from the ADIZ in a hurried withdrawal. No sovereign airspace is crossed. No direct exchange takes place beyond the warning burst. But the United States controls the entire encounter from start to finish. This was not just a successful intercept. It was a strategic message. A real-world demonstration of what billions of dollars in American technology, coordination, and readiness can deliver in a matter of minutes. For Russia, it becomes a costly lesson in misjudgment. A reminder that pushing too far can quickly turn into a very public setback. No full-scale conflict, just unmistakable control. And for America, the signal is equally clear. We set the standard, and we enforce it with precision no one can ignore. The U.S. Response becomes a textbook example of integrated air power. Fast, disciplined, connected, and overwhelming without going beyond the line. If you enjoyed this story, like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you don't miss more high-intensity military breakdowns. And down in the comments, tell us this. What analysis should we cover next? The F-35, hypersonic missiles, or another major aerial standoff?